Hello and welcome once again to Richard's Home Mechanics. Now today we've got a little Peugeot vclic 50cc scooter, which is a non-starter. So we will be having a quick look at this and see if we can get it running. Right, before we go any further, I like to explain in my videos what I'm actually going to be doing. Now we're going to be fault finding and see if we can get this scooter running. Now I use this. Now this is what I use to fault find. This is how I explain how I fault find. For an engine to work, you need fuel, you need compression, and you need ignition. If you lose one of these three items, it will not start. I am reasonably familiar with these scooters. I have worked on them before, especially the Chinese ones with the engines of the GY6 engine, I believe, or somewhere along them lines. Now these Chinese import scooters are cheap for a reason. They have very inferior parts fitted to them. The electrical circuits are not that clever, and the accessories like the alternator, the stator, the coil, ignition, the CDI, very quite cheap and nasty, and they're very prone to fail. So what we're going to do first is, you say, if we look back at my chart, we've got fuel, compression, ignition. Now, I'm going to not worry about the fuel at the moment, and I'm not going to worry about compression. We're going to go straight in and we're going to check the ignition. So first of all, what we're going to do, we're going to see if we've actually got a spark. It's as simple as that. We're going to start at the spark, and then we're going to trace back from the spark plug all the way back to the stator. Somewhere along the line, I think there's a fault with the electrical system, and I will explain it as I'm testing, and I'll show the results that we're getting. So let's crack on. Let's see if we can get this scooter started, shall we? Okay, what we're going to do now, we're going to see if we've actually got a spark. We're going to turn the ignition on. Right, absolutely no spark there at all. Okie dokie, so we know there's a fault. There, we've got no spark at all. So what we're going to do is we are going to backtrack, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to test the coil, which is deep inside there. So let's crack on. When you basically test like this, I'm going to work my way back from the spark plug all the way along the HT lead to the coil, from the coil and down to the stator. But let's see how we get on. Let's see how we go on. Let's start testing, shall we? Okay, so we established we haven't got a spark. So my first port of call is we're going to follow the HT lead down, and we're going to go to the coil. We're going to test the coil and see how we get on from there. We're going to test the coil first. So we need to get the old meter out. Get the old multimeter out. Right, set it to the ohms resistance, which I've done. The range, I don't want a million. We're going for 200. Cross the leads, make sure you've got continuity, and we're going to go in and test. Now we're testing the actual coil winding itself on this coil. Let's have a look. If you can see that, 0.08, not looking to, that's about right. It's jumping a little bit, but it might be my probes. 0.5, I'm happy with that. Now we know that we've got a winding across that coil. Now what we're going to do next is the HT lead, we're going to make sure that we have got a connection, or simplicity, a wire running from there to feed the spark plug, because if we haven't, well, the spark plug won't get no feed, will it? So let's have a look. Probe inside the plug. On one of them we have got a 0 there, not a good sign. And if you can see that, look, 0. Right, so that does look like it might be the coil that's at fault. Fortunately, I've got a new coil here. Let's have a look and compare it, shall we, and just see what the difference is between that reading, which was showing 0 reading between the pins down to the plug, and a new coil. Let's have a look. Right, so it looks like we may have a faulty coil there. Before we go any further, now I've happened to have a spare coil knocking around. The only reason is that these fit a lot of other scooters, and I've actually looked like it's the same one, it's the same pattern number. So let's actually compare the readings. So going back, we had a reading of 0.5 across the coil, and when we tested from the end of the coil there to the end of the HT lead, we had nothing on both pins, which is not a good sign, because we will need continuity from there to make a circuit to make it spark. So let's set the resistance. This needs to be slightly higher, so I've set it to kilowatts, not megas. because if I went up to 200 ohms, it's going to be too low. Let's have a look. Right, this is the new coil. First of all, actually what we'll do, let's come down a range, go to 200 ohms, just test across the coil itself. Here we go, one in there. It's very fiddly when you're trying to film and test at the same time. Yeah, 0.6, that's near enough the same as the old coil, so we know the winding seems to be okay on the old coil. Is it the feed, the HT lead from the coil to the plug, which could be the issue on this scooter? Let's hope so. That will be a result. Right. Because we're testing the HT lead, it's a much higher resistance, so I have to knock the range up. So we're going to go from 200 up to 1,000 ohms, anything over up to 1,000. Right, we're going to go onto one of these pins. Here we go. Nothing on that one. Let's have a look. Flipping over. Let's just set that again. I just want to do my leads again, just make sure I'm 100% them leads are neutraled. Okay. Bang that back on again, just to make 100% sure the meter was set. And here we go. Yeah, I just needed to reset my meter, recalibrate it and get it set again. There we go, 7.5 kilowatt ohms. Okay. Let's just turn this round. Up we go. Well, that coil we've just tested looks like the coil's failed on here. Now that'd be a nice easy fix. We're going to swap that over in a minute and see if it runs. If it hadn't been the coil, we would have traced back through the wiring down to the stator. Coming off the stator, you have what they call a pulse. It's a pulsar. If you imagine the stator, it's very hard to explain without having taken this one out. If you look at my previous videos on the Honda CBF 125, you'll see how I test the stator. I haven't got the wiring diagram, so I can't fully identify what wires are what, but you normally have three wires for the coil, and you'll have a red and black possibly which feeds the CDI, and a blue and white sometimes that feeds the pulsar. And what it does, you've got an alternator and a flywheel with magnets, and as it goes round, there's a little magnet on top of the flywheel, and as it goes past this little pickup, it sends a signal to the CDI, which is the brains of the scooter, and then that CDI tells it when to spark. So obviously you want the piston right at the maximum top for it to fire to push it back down. That's compression. Anyway, hey ho, that will be another video. So it looks like it could be the coil playing up on here. So let's whip this coil out, put it on and see if it starts. Okay, what I've temporarily done, we've tested the coil out and the coil does seem to be faulty. So what I've done, I've just temporarily connected up the new coil and let's see if it starts, shall we? Now this was not starting before, so hopefully we fixed it. Let's have a look. Ignition on. Just going to have a look, make sure there's no sillies. Okay. Hopefully we fixed it. Hopefully that'll keep going for another day. Thanks for watching Richard's Home Mechanics. Keep tuned, plenty more coming. Catch you soon. Bye bye for now.